An exciting story of redemption, love, passion, and new beginnings, where a millionaire falls in love with an innocent virginal girl and says, "You are mine now," frightening the girl who freezes upon hearing it. But before telling this story, subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Continuing, the silence of the Morgan Library in downtown Manhattan had always been the perfect refuge for Emma Reed. Among the century-old shelves and the aroma of ancient books, she found the peace that the outside world stubbornly denied. That autumn morning, while organizing a new shipment of rare works in the American modernist literature section, her delicate fingers slid over the spines with her usual precision. At 28, Emma had transformed this library into her sanctuary, a place where her silence wasn't interpreted as weakness, but as reverence. The historic building, with its marble staircases and Art Deco stained glass, held more than just books. It also hid Emma's secrets. Each corridor, each reading room, each dusty corner knew her story better than any living person. There, among forgotten volumes and old card catalogues, she could be invisible without feeling diminished. It was a chosen invisibility, cultivated as a form of protection. Her modest apartment in Brooklyn Heights, inherited from her maternal grandmother, was just a place to sleep. The real Emma lived among the pages of the books she catalogued, restored, and protected. Her routine was a meticulously choreographed dance, waking before the sun, walking through the still drowsy streets of the old neighborhood, arriving at the library when only the night security guards were still yawning at their posts. It was a linear, predictable, safe existence, until that Tuesday. The sound of expensive heels on the marble floor echoed through the main hall long before their owner appeared. Emma recognized the authoritative cadence of the steps. It was Victoria Parker, the library director, a woman who compensated for her short stature with a presence that seemed to occupy the entire room. But there was another sound accompanying. Victoria's heels, masculine footsteps, firm, deliberate. "Emma, so glad you're already here." Victoria's voice had that false casualness that Emma knew well. It was the tone her boss used when she wanted to impress someone important. "I need to introduce you to Dr. Nathan Blackwell. He's interested in our collection of first edition, modernist works." It was at that moment that Emma saw him for the first time. Tall, with that kind of elegance that can't be bought in tailoring shops, even though his Italian suit suggested otherwise. Green eyes that seemed to catalogue every detail of the environment and of her face with a disturbing intensity. Nathan Blackwell was the kind of man who made the air seem thicker, just with his presence. "Miss Reed." His voice was deep, controlled, with that peculiar accent of someone who had studied abroad for too long. "Victoria tells me you're the most qualified person to assist me in my research." Emma felt the weight of that gaze as something physical. There was something predatory in the way he observed her, as if he could see through the layers of protection she had built over the years. Her hands, always so steady with books, trembled slightly when she extended them for a formal greeting. "It will be a pleasure to help you, Dr. Blackwell." The words came out automatic, rehearsed, part of the script she followed in her limited social interactions. But there was something different this time, an electric current that ran through her body when his fingers touched hers, a second longer than necessary. Victoria continued talking, explaining about Nathan's research project, something about the influence of modernist literature on the formation of American cultural identity. But Emma barely heard. She was too busy trying to control the sensations that first contact had awakened, feelings that she had buried so deep that she didn't even remember they existed. It wasn't just Nathan's physical beauty that disturbed her. It was something more primitive, more dangerous. It was the way his gaze seemed to undress not her body, but her soul, as if he could see the frightened girl who still lived inside her, the one who woke up screaming on stormy nights, the one who still looked for her mother in every female face that passed through the library. "Could you show me the collection now?" His voice cut through her thoughts like a sharp blade. Victoria had already said goodbye, leaving them alone in the immense hall. Emma nodded, guiding him toward the rare works section. The rare books room was on the third floor, isolated from the rest of the library by heavy oak doors. It was the place where Emma felt most comfortable, her particular domain. But today, with Nathan Blackwell following her steps, the place seemed smaller, more intimate than it should be. This way, Dr. Blackwell. She indicated one of the reading tables, ancient and majestic like everything in that place. He sat down, observing her every movement as she went to fetch the requested volumes. Emma could feel his gaze like a physical touch on the back of her neck. Nathan. His voice sounded closer than she expected. Call me Nathan. Dr. Blackwell makes me feel like my father. Emma froze for a moment, her hands hovering over a first edition of The Great Gatsby. There was something in the way he said that, a bitter note when mentioning his father, that touched something inside her. Recognition, perhaps. Or maybe it was just her imagination, fueled by years of solitude and untold stories. As you wish, Nathan. His name on her lips sounded like an involuntary confession. She continued her search for the requested books, trying to maintain the professional composure that was her trademark. But each time she turned, she found those green eyes, studying her with an intensity that made her heart race. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of literary discussions and charged silences. Nathan demonstrated a deep knowledge of literature that surprised her. He wasn't just another rich collector trying to impress. There was a genuine passion in his voice when he talked about F. Scott Fitzgerald, a real understanding of the importance of those works for American culture. But there were also moments when the conversation ceased and the air between them became dense with something unsaid. Moments when his fingers brushed hers accidentally when turning a page, when their gazes met for too long over some particularly significant passage. When he finally said goodbye, it was almost lunchtime. I'll return tomorrow if it's not inconvenient. There is much more I'd like to discuss with you, Emma. The way he pronounced her name, as if savoring each syllable, made something tremble inside her. That night in her quiet apartment, Emma couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every moment of the day, every look, every word. For the first time in years, books weren't enough to calm her restlessness. For the first time since her mother had disappeared, leaving only a cruel note and some clothes in the closet, Emma felt something awakening inside her, something that both frightened and attracted her in equal measure. What she didn't know as she stared at the ceiling of her bedroom in the early hours of the morning was that Nathan Blackwell was also awake, in his penthouse in Upper East Side, watching the city lights with a glass of whiskey in his hand, and that his thoughts, like hers, were trapped in that meeting at the library, in the way she averted her gaze when he approached, in the almost imperceptible tremor of her hands when he was too close. What Emma couldn't imagine was that for Nathan, she wasn't just another shy librarian. He had recognized in her something that few would see, a wild strength forcibly tamed, a passion repressed by years of trauma. And he was determined to free that strength, even if it meant destroying all the walls she had built around herself. What neither of them knew was that that first meeting in the library was just the beginning of a story that would change their lives forever. A story of desire and power, of buried secrets and painful truths, a story that began there, among ancient books and eloquent silences, but would soon overflow beyond the safe walls of the Morgan Library, dragging them into a whirlwind of passion and danger from which neither would emerge unscathed. The following days transformed into an elaborate dance of seemingly casual encounters and growing tension. Nathan began frequenting the library daily, always arriving at the same time, always requesting Emma's assistance. His interest in the book seemed genuine, but there was something more in his eyes when he watched her work, a predatory gleam that made her shiver. Emma's routine, once so predictable, now revolved around those shared hours in the rare book section. Each morning was a battle between the desire to see him and the fear of what that desire might mean. She found herself choosing her clothes more carefully, brushing the brown hair she used to tie carelessly, applying a light touch of lipstick that had lain forgotten in her drawer for years. It was on a Thursday that everything began to change. Nathan arrived earlier than usual, finding Emma alone in the library mezzanine. She was organizing some volumes when she felt his presence. She no longer needed to turn around to know it was him. Her body had learned to recognize the energy he emanated, the weight of his gaze, the sound of his footsteps. "Good morning, Emma." His voice sounded closer than she expected, making her start. One of the books she was holding slipped from her hands, but before it could fall, Nathan's quick reflexes captured it in mid-air. "Careful, these books are too precious for accidents." Their fingers touched when she tried to retrieve the volume, and this time neither pretended it was accidental. The contact lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to make Emma's heart race. When she finally looked up, she found Nathan observing her with an intensity that left her breathless. "Why do you hide so much, Emma?" The question caught her off guard. "Why do you try to make yourself invisible when you're the most fascinating person I've ever met?" His words hit her like a punch to the stomach. Emma took a step back, instinctively seeking the safety of distance. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Blackwell." "Nathan," he corrected, taking a step forward for each step she took back. "And yes, you do. You hide behind these books, this job, this studied shyness. But I see you, Emma. I see the woman behind the masks." Emma felt the shelves at her back, realizing she had retreated so far that she was now cornered between the books and Nathan. The corridor was deserted. At this hour of the morning, they were the only ones in the mezzanine. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. "You don't know me." Her voice came out weaker than she intended. "You don't know anything about me." "I know more than you imagine." Nathan was close now, too close. His cologne, a mixture of sandalwood and something more primitive, invaded her senses. "I know you tremble when I'm near, but not from fear. I know you count the minutes until I arrive every morning, and I know you dream about me at night." Emma felt her face burn. How could he know? How could he read her most secret thoughts, those she barely admitted to herself? "Please." She didn't know if she was asking him to step away or come closer. "Please what, Emma?" His voice was husky now, just a whisper between them. "Please. Stop, or please continue." Before she could answer, the sound of footsteps and voices reached them. Nathan moved away with the same feline elegance with which he had approached, leaving Emma trembling against the shelves. A group of students appeared at the end of the corridor, completely oblivious to the intimate moment they had interrupted. "Have dinner with me tonight." It wasn't a request, it was almost an order. Nathan's eyes didn't leave hers, completely ignoring the presence of others. "Let me get to know the real Emma outside these walls." She should say no. All her life, her experience, all her self-preservation instincts screamed to refuse, but when she opened her mouth, what came out was, yes. Nathan's smile was triumphant, almost dangerous. "I'll send my driver to pick you up at 8. He leaned in, his lips lightly brushing her ear. "Wear red." And then he was gone, leaving Emma leaning against the shelves, her legs barely able to support her. The rest of the day passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. When she finally arrived home, Emma found an elegant box waiting for her at the front desk. Inside was a red silk dress that seemed to have been made to measure for her, along with a handwritten card, "For the woman who tries to hide in the shadows, but shines like fire." As she prepared for dinner, Emma couldn't help feeling that she was about to cross a line from which there would be no return. The dress hugged her curves in a way that made her feel both exposed and powerful at the same time. When the driver arrived punctually at 8, she barely recognized the woman in the mirror. The car took her beyond the familiar streets of downtown, entering the upscale neighborhoods of the Upper East Side. They stopped in front of an imposing building, where Nathan waited for her in the lobby. When he saw her, his green eyes darkened, in a way that made Emma mentally thank the nearby doorman for his presence. "You look stunning," he offered his arm, guiding her to the private elevator. "But then, you always do." Nathan's apartment occupied the entire top floor of the building. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of New York, the city lights twinkling like earthly stars. But it wasn't the view that caught Emma's attention. It was the private library that occupied one of the walls, from floor to ceiling. "Impressive, isn't it?" Nathan observed her reaction with a satisfied smile. "But none of these books have the value of those you guard." Emma ran her fingers over the spines, recognizing rare titles and valuable editions. "How did you get this entire collection?" "Money opens many doors." He approached from behind her, his fingers lightly brushing her exposed shoulders. "But some things are harder to get." The double meaning was clear in his voice. Emma turned to face him, finding his face very close. "Why me?" The question escaped before she could contain it. "Why are you so interested in me?" Nathan raised a hand, his fingers delicately tracing the line of her face. "Because you're a mystery I want to unravel, a rare book I want to read page by page." His eyes met hers. "And because from the moment I saw you, I knew you would be mine." The words should have frightened her. They should have activated all her internal alarms, all the defenses she had built over the years. But instead, Emma felt something inside her awaken, something wild, primitive, that had been kept dormant for so long. "And if I don't want to be yours?" Her voice came out firmer than she expected, surprising them both. Nathan's smile was predatory. "But you already are, Emma. You just don't know it yet." He moved away abruptly, leaving her trembling with desire and anger. "Shall we have dinner? The chef is waiting for us." Dinner was served on the terrace, under the stars and city lights. Elaborate dishes and expensive wines, a clear demonstration of Nathan's power and wealth. But it was the conversation that truly captured Emma. He spoke of literature with genuine passion, quoted poetry from memory, discussed philosophy with a depth that surprised her. "How does someone like you end up in the business world?" she asked after her third glass of wine, feeling looser than she had in years. Nathan's face darkened momentarily. "We don't always have a choice about our paths, Emma. Sometimes fate pushes us in directions we didn't plan." There was something in his tone that struck a chord with Emma. "I know that feeling well." "Yes, I imagine you do." He studied her for a moment. "There's so much pain in your eyes, Emma, so much untold history." She looked away, suddenly aware of how much she had revealed without saying a word. "We all have our secrets." "Yes, we do." Nathan stood up, extending his hand to her. "Dance with me." Soft music began to play. Emma hadn't even noticed the discreetly positioned speakers around the terrace. When he pulled her into his arms, her body responded instinctively, molding itself to his as if they had been made for each other. "You're trembling," he murmured against her hair. "I haven't danced in a long time." "That's not what I meant." His fingers traced a slow path down her back. "You tremble because you desire me as much as I desire you." Emma tried to pull away, but his arms kept her in place. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." His lips brushed her neck. "Just as I know you're a virgin." The shock made her freeze in his arms. How do I know?" Nathan laughed softly. "By the way you move, how you react to my touch, by the way your eyes just widened." His fingers caressed her face. "Don't worry, little Emma. I won't take anything you don't want to give me." But there was something in his voice, a veiled promise that made Emma shiver. When he finally kissed her, it was as if the world had stopped spinning. His lips were gentle but insistent, tasting her with a patience that barely disguised the contained desire. Emma found herself responding to the kiss with a passion she didn't know she possessed. Her hands buried themselves in his hair, her body pressing against his as if she wanted to fuse with his skin. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "Emma." His voice was hoarse, his eyes dark with desire. "You have no idea what you do to me." She could feel exactly what she was doing to him, pressed against her belly. The thought made her blush and pull away. "I need to go. Stay." It was both a command and a plea. "I can't." She gathered her purse, trying to compose herself. "Not yet." Nathan watched her for a long moment before nodding. "For now, then. But know that this," he gestured between them, "is just beginning." When the driver dropped her off at home that night, Emma knew her life had irrevocably changed. What she didn't know was that, at that exact moment, in a luxurious office in Midtown, a woman was studying her photo on a computer screen. "So this is his new obsession." Olivia Martinez smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Interesting, very interesting." The next morning, when Emma arrived at the library, her world felt different. The familiar corridors seemed charged with a new energy, the books around her whispering secrets she had never noticed before. She touched her lips unconsciously, still feeling Nathan's kiss from the night before. "Someone looks different today," said Lisa, an elderly librarian who had always treated Emma with maternal affection. "Something you'd like to share?" Emma, felt the heat rise to her cheeks. Just had a good night's sleep, she lied, burying herself in the new arrivals that needed cataloguing. But her mind was miles away, replaying every moment of the previous evening. The way Nathan had looked at her when she wore that red dress, how his fingers had grazed her skin, the intensity in his eyes when he declared that she was his. Part of her wanted to rebel against such possessiveness, yet another part, a part she barely recognized, thrilled at the thought. Her phone vibrated, in her pocket. A text from an unknown number. "You're even more beautiful when you blush, look up." Emma's head snapped up to find Nathan leaning against the doorframe of the rare books room, watching her with that now familiar intensity. He wasn't supposed to be here today. Their next appointment wasn't until tomorrow. "Dr. Blackwell," she said formally, aware of Lisa's curious eyes. "I wasn't expecting you." "A change of plans." He approached her desk with casual confidence. "I need to consult a particular volume today, something quite urgent." His voice was professional, but his eyes told a different story. The morning passed in a dance of stolen glances and carefully maintained distance. When Lisa finally left for lunch, they found themselves alone in the quiet sanctuary of books. "You're avoiding me," Nathan said, closing the volume he had been pretending to read. "I'm doing my job," Emma countered, though she couldn't quite meet his eyes. "Last night was a mistake," she interrupted, finally looking up. "I barely know you. This man, whatever this is happening too fast." Nathan studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right." His ready agreement caught her off guard. "I am?" "Absolutely." He closed the distance between them, but stopped short of touching her. "So let's remedy that. Have lunch with me, just lunch in public. Get to know me without distractions." Emma hesitated. Lunch seemed safe enough. It was daylight, it would be in public, and it was just food. "Okay, just lunch." Lunch turned out to be at a small Italian bistro 2 blocks from the library. Casual enough not to be intimidating, yet exclusive enough that Nathan was greeted by name. As they settled into a secluded corner booth, Emma realized this was her first real date in years. "Tell me about yourself," Nathan said, once they had ordered. The real Emma Reed, not the carefully curated version you show to the world. "There's not much to tell," she deflected. "I've worked at the library for 6 years. Before that, I studied literature at Columbia. My life is pretty ordinary." "Nothing about you is ordinary, Emma." The intensity of his gaze made her shift uncomfortably. "I've watched you with those books. You don't just catalogue them or preserve them. You commune with them. Each one you touch, you treat like it holds the secrets of the universe." "Books are safer than people," she said without thinking, then immediately regretted the revealing admission. "Why?" He leaned forward. "What made you seek safety in pages rather than people?" Emma stared at her untouched wine. She never discussed her past. Never. Yet something about Nathan made her want to unburden herself, to share the weight she had carried alone for so long. "My mother disappeared when I was 12, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She just left. No warning, no real explanation. Just a note saying she couldn't handle life with us anymore." She traced the rim of her glass with a finger. "My father, he changed after that, became cold, controlling. Books became my escape. The library, my sanctuary." Nathan reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago." "Time doesn't always heal wounds, Emma. Sometimes it just teaches us to live with the pain." The understanding in his voice made her look up. There was no pity in his eyes, just recognition, as if he knew exactly what kind of pain she was describing. "Your turn," she said, trying to shift the focus. "The mysterious Dr. Nathan Blackwell. Who are you really?" A shadow crossed his face. "The son of a brilliant man and a gentle woman, the heir to a fortune built on innovation and some less savory foundations. A man trying to reconcile his father's legacy with his own moral compass. That sounds complicated. Life usually is." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My father built Blackwell Industries from nothing into one of the largest private conglomerates in the country. What most people don't know is how he did it, the corners he cut, the people he stepped on. When he died 5 years ago, I inherited not just his wealth, but also his sins. And you're trying to atone for them. Something like that. Nathan took a sip of his wine. One of those sins involves a psychiatric institute he owned, the Wellspring Institute. Have you heard of it? Emma shook her head. It was supposedly a cutting-edge mental health facility for women with various conditions. In reality, it was a place where inconvenient wives, rebellious daughters, and women who knew too much could be tucked away and forgotten. His voice had hardened. When I discovered what was happening there, I shut it down immediately. But the damage was already done to so many lives. A chill ran down Emma's spine. That's horrific. Yes, it is. And it's just the tip of the iceberg of my father's legacy. Nathan's eyes held hers. That's why your work matters so much to me, Emma. You preserve history, knowledge, truth. You understand the value of bearing witness, even to difficult things. There was something in his tone, in the intensity of his gaze, that made Emma think he wasn't just talking about books anymore. But before she could question him further, his phone rang. The moment he checked the screen, his expression darkened. "I need to take this," he said, stepping outside the restaurant. Through the window, Emma watched him pace on the sidewalk, his body language tense. When he returned a few minutes later, his face was carefully composed, but she could sense the underlying tension. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just business," he replied, though his smile was strained. "Nothing for you to worry about." But as he paid the bill and escorted her back to the library, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that whatever that call had been about, it had everything to do with her. The next morning, an elegant envelope was waiting on Emma's desk when she arrived at work. Inside was an invitation to a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art that weekend, along with a note in Nathan's distinctive handwriting. "See? I can do slow, one step at a time. Will you take this one with me?" Emma stared at the invitation, conflicted. A public event with hundreds of witnesses seemed safe enough. Yet she sensed that each step she took toward Nathan was a step deeper, into a world she didn't fully understand, a world with currents and undertows that could pull her under if she wasn't careful. She was still contemplating her answer when Victoria Parker swept into the rare books room, her face unusually serious. "Emma, there's someone here to see you. She's very insistent." Victoria's expression suggested she found the visitor distasteful. "I've put her in my office for privacy." Puzzled, Emma made her way to the director's office. When she opened the door, she found a striking woman in her early 30s perched on the edge of Victoria's desk. With her sleek dark hair, model-like figure, and impeccably tailored suit, she looked like she had stepped off the cover of a fashion magazine. "Emma Reed," the woman said, her voice cultured and cold. "Finally we meet. I'm Olivia Martinez." "Can I help you with something, Ms. Martinez?" Emma asked, remaining by the door. "Oh, I think it's I who can help you." Olivia opened a designer handbag and removed a thick envelope. "Before you get any deeper into whatever fantasy Nathan Blackwell is spinning for you, there are some things you should see." She tossed the envelope onto the desk between them. Against her better judgment, Emma stepped forward and opened it. Inside were dozens of photographs. Nathan with various women over what appeared to be several years. In some, he looked younger, carefree. In others, more recent ones, he had the same intensity she had come to know. "What is this supposed to be?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "A warning." Olivia stepped closer. "Nathan has a pattern. He finds vulnerable women, usually quiet, bookish types with some kind of trauma in their past. He makes them feel special, unique, makes them believe they're the only ones who truly understand him, and then when he's done with them, he discards them like yesterday's newspaper." Emma stared at the photos, a sick feeling growing in her stomach. "And you know this how?" "Because I was one of them." Olivia's perfect facade cracked slightly, revealing a glimpse of genuine pain. "For 2 years, I was the center of his universe, until I wasn't. We were engaged to be married when he suddenly decided I wasn't the one after all." She pulled out one particular photo that showed her and Nathan at what appeared to be an engagement party. his arm possessively around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera. "Why are you showing me this?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. "Because someone once tried to warn me and I didn't listen." Olivia's eyes hardened again. "Nathan doesn't just break hearts, Emma. He breaks people, and some of them don't recover." She pulled out another photo, this one showing a young woman in what was clearly a hospital bed, looking gaunt and haunted. Rebecca Davis. She tried to kill herself after Nathan ended things. There are others with similar stories. Emma felt cold all over. "I appreciate your concern, Ms. Martinez, but my relationship with Dr. Blackwell is strictly professional." Olivia laughed, a brittle sound with no humor in it. "Of course it is. That's how it always starts. Just be careful, Emma. Nathan Blackwell collects people like you collect books, for their rarity and value, not because he loves them." After Olivia left, Emma sat alone in Victoria's office for a long time, the envelope of photos like a ticking bomb on the desk in front of her. The rational part of her brain said this could be the vindictive actions of a scorned ex-fiancé, but another part, the part that had spent a lifetime being cautious, whispered that where there was smoke, there was usually fire. When she finally returned to the rare books room, she found Nathan waiting for her, his face grave. "Olivia came to see you," he said. It wasn't a question. "How did you know?" "Because it's what she does." His voice was tight with controlled anger. "Every time I show interest in someone, she appears with her envelope of so-called evidence." "Is it true?" Emma asked, clutching the envelope to her chest. "These women—" "May I?" He held out his hand for the photos. After a moment's hesitation, she handed them over. Nathan flipped through them, his expression growing darker with each image. "Some of these are genuine, some are manipulated, some are completely taken out of context." He stopped at the one of Rebecca Davis in the hospital. "This one is an outright lie. Rebecca tried to kill herself because of an abusive ex-boyfriend who stalked her after they broke up. I was the one who found her and got her to the hospital." "And Olivia, were you engaged?" "Yes." His answer was simple and direct. "For 8 months. It ended badly, largely because I discovered she had been manipulating me from the beginning. She's not a stable person, Emma." "So you didn't break all these women's hearts?" Emma gestured to the photos. "I've had relationships that ended." Like most adults, Nathan set the envelope down. "Some ended badly, some amicably. I'm not perfect, Emma, far from it. But I've never deliberately hurt anyone the way Olivia is suggesting." He took a step closer to her. "Ask yourself this. If I were the monster she claims, why would I be pursuing a relationship with you so openly? Why bring you to my home, introduce you to my colleagues, invite you to public events?" Emma had to admit he had a point. If he were trying to hide a pattern of behavior, he was doing a spectacularly poor job of it. "I understand if this makes you hesitant about the gala," he continued, "but I hope you'll still come. If nothing else, it will show you that I have nothing to hide." After he left, Emma retreated to her small office behind the rare books room. Her emotions were in turmoil. Every instinct for self-preservation told her to run far away from Nathan Blackwell and all the complications he represented. Yet when she closed her eyes, all she could see was the genuine pain in his face when he looked at those photos, the raw honesty in his voice when he told her about his father's legacy. At the end of her shift, she found Nathan's driver waiting outside the library. "Mr. Blackwell thought you might want to talk," the driver explained, opening the car door. "He's waiting at his office." The headquarters of Blackwell Industries occupied a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown. The driver escorted Emma through a private entrance and up to the executive floor, where Nathan's assistant immediately showed her into his office. It was a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of Central Park. Unlike his apartment, which had felt personal and lived in, this office was all business, sleek, modern, and slightly intimidating. Nathan was standing by the window, his back to the door, deep in conversation on his phone. "Just keep monitoring the situation," he was saying. "Let me know if anything changes." When he turned and saw Emma, his face softened immediately. "I have to go. Keep me posted." "I wasn't sure I should come," Emma said once he had hung up. "I'm glad you did." He gestured to a seating area away from his desk. Would you like something to drink? Coffee? Water? I'm fine. She remained standing. I've been thinking about what Olivia said and what you said. And I don't know what to believe. She met his gaze directly. I barely know you, Nathan. A few days ago you were just another patron at the library. Now suddenly my life is full of expensive dresses, charity galas, and dramatic warnings from your ex-fiancé. It's a lot. Too much? He asked quietly. Maybe. She hugged herself, suddenly feeling vulnerable. I'm not used to this kind of intensity. Nathan nodded slowly. I understand, and if you want to walk away right now, I won't try to stop you. His willingness to let her go surprised her. Just like that. Just like that. He took a step toward her but stopped, respecting the invisible boundary she had created. But before you decide, there's something I need to show you, something that might explain why things between us have moved so quickly. He went to his desk and unlocked a drawer, removing a slim file folder. This is why I initially came to the library, he said, handing it to her. Not for the first editions or research on modernist literature, for this. Emma opened the folder with trepidation. Inside was a single photograph, old, its edges yellowed with age. It showed a woman who looked startlingly like herself, standing in front of what appeared to be a medical facility. The date stamp in the corner read March 15th, 1997. Who is this? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. I believe it's your mother, Catherine Reed. Nathan's voice was gentle. This was taken at the Wellspring Institute about a month before she disappeared from your life. Emma felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. My mother was at your father's psychiatric facility. Yes, and I think she didn't leave you voluntarily. Emma, sir, I think she was committed there against her will, and then something happened to her. Emma sank into the nearest chair, the photograph trembling in her hands. How do you know this? Why were you looking for her? Since I took over Blackwell Industries, I've been investigating all of my father's business dealings, especially the questionable ones. The Wellspring Institute was high on that list. Nathan knelt in front of her chair. Your mother's name came up in some old records. When I saw her photo, the resemblance to you was startling. I had to know if there was a connection. So you came to the library to, what, study me? Initially, yes. His honesty was brutal but necessary. I wanted to see if you were related to Catherine Reed, to understand if what happened to her might be connected to other patients who disappeared from Wellspring. But then I met you and... He trailed off, searching for words. Everything changed. Emma stared at the photograph, at this woman who looked so much like her. The mother she had believed abandoned her, the mother she had secretly hated for years. My father told me she left us, that she couldn't handle being a wife and mother anymore. Your father lied. Nathan's voice hardened. From what I've been able to piece together, your mother discovered something about my father's business dealings, something damaging. She was planning to go public with it. Before she could, she was committed to Wellspring with a diagnosis of delusional paranoia. By my father. With your father's consent, yes. Emma felt sick. The foundation of her entire life, even the pain that had shaped her, was built on lies. Why are you telling me this now? Because Olivia knows I've been investigating Wellspring. She was my father's assistant before she was my fiancée. She knows things, Emma, dangerous things. Her coming to see you today wasn't just jealousy. It was a warning to me as much as to you. A warning about what? That she'll expose everything. If I get too close to the truth, or if I help you get too close to it. Emma stood up suddenly, needing to move to process the bombshell he had just dropped on her life. So this between us, it started because of my mother. It started because of your mother, Nathan acknowledged. But it continued because of you, Emma. Only you. She shook her head, backing away from him. I need to think. I need space. Of course. He didn't try to follow her. Whatever you need, but Emma, be careful. Now that Olivia knows I've told you, you might be in danger too. From who, your ex-fiancé? From whoever was really behind what happened at Wellspring, your father, my father, Olivia, they were all connected to something bigger, something I haven't fully uncovered yet. His eyes met hers, deadly serious. Watch your back. As the elevator doors closed between them, Emma clutched the photograph to her chest, her mind reeling. In the span of a few days, her carefully ordered world had shattered. The mother she thought had abandoned her might have been imprisoned and possibly killed. The father she had both feared and obeyed might be a monster. And Nathan Blackwell, was he her ally in uncovering the truth, or just another player in a game she was only beginning to understand? The only certainty was that she could no longer hide in the safe, predictable world of her beloved books. The real story, her story, was waiting to be uncovered, page by terrible page. The subway ride back to Brooklyn Heights was a blur, Emma's mind too consumed with revelations to register her surroundings. By the time she reached her apartment building, darkness had fallen, and a light rain was beginning to fall, matching her turbulent mood. "Evening, Miss Reed," said Mr. Sullivan, the elderly doorman. "You've had a visitor waiting for quite some time." Emma froze, Nathan's warning about danger echoing in her mind. "Who?" "An older gentleman said he was family. I let him wait in the lobby since you've never mentioned not allowing visitors." Her heart pounding, Emma stepped into the lobby, to find her father sitting in one of the worn armchairs, looking as impeccable and imposing as ever. Richard Reed had always been a handsome man, silver-haired and distinguished in his expensive suits. To the outside world he was a successful businessman, a pillar of the community. To Emma he was the architect of her carefully constructed cage. "Dad," she said, her voice remarkably steady considering the storm inside her. "This is a surprise." Richard Reed stood, his smile not quite reaching his eyes, a trait Emma now realized Nathan had immediately recognized in her. Can't a father visit his only daughter without an inquisition? Of course. She forced herself to accept his perfunctory kiss on the cheek. "Would you like to come up?" In her apartment, Richard made a show of examining her modest living space, with the thinly veiled disapproval she was accustomed to. "Still haven't done anything with the place, I see. Your grandmother would be disappointed. Grandma left it to me because she knew I'd preserve it, not gut it for the latest trend." Emma hung up her coat, buying time to calm her racing thoughts. "What brings you by, Dad? You're usually in Boston. This time of year. Can't I simply miss my daughter?" When Emma didn't respond, he sighed. "Fine. I received a rather disturbing call today from an old associate. Seems you've been seen in the company of Nathan Blackwell." Emma's blood ran cold. She turned away, pretending to busy herself with making tea to hide her reaction. "I don't see how my professional associations are any of your concern." "Professional?" Richard's laugh was sharp. "That's not what I heard. And Blackwell is not. Someone you want to get involved with, Emma. He's dangerous." "Dangerous how?" She set the kettle on the stove, finally turning to face him. "He's vindictive, obsessive. He's been on a crusade to dismantle his father's legacy since the day Alexander Blackwell died. He doesn't care who gets hurt in the process." "Including patients at the Wellspring Institute?" Emma asked, watching her father carefully. The flicker of shock in Richard's eyes was brief, but unmistakable. "What do you know about Wellspring?" "I know Mom was there." She pulled the photograph from her bag, placing it on the counter between them. "I know she didn't leave us voluntarily. I know you lied to me for 16 years. Richard stared at the photograph, his face draining of color before he quickly composed himself. "Where did you get this?" "From Nathan." "Of course." Richard's voice hardened. "He's using you, Emma. Can't you see that? He's using you to get to me, to settle some imagined score with a dead man." "Why was Mom at Wellspring, Dad?" Emma pressed, ignoring his attempt to deflect. What was she going to expose that was so dangerous she had to be locked away? "Your mother was sick," Richard said, his tone softening to one of practiced concern. "She had delusions, paranoia. She believed in conspiracies that weren't real. We tried to help her at home, but eventually she needed professional care. And that professional care resulted in her disappearance." Emma could feel anger rising like a tide within her, anger that had been suppressed for so long she barely recognized it as her own. "What happened to her?" She ran away from the facility. Left a note saying she couldn't handle coming back to us, that she needed a fresh start. The lie rolled smoothly off his tongue, as it had countless times before. I showed you the note. Emma, you read it yourself. A note that you conveniently produced. A note I never saw her write. Emma's hands were shaking now. Tell me the truth, Dad. What really happened to Mum? Richard's face hardened. I can see Blackwell has already poisoned your mind against me. This is exactly what he wants. To turn you against your family. You're not answering my question. For a moment, Richard looked genuinely pained. Then his expression shut down, becoming the cold mask Emma knew too well. I think this conversation has gone far enough. I came here to warn you, as your father who loves you. Stay away from Nathan Blackwell. He's using your mother's disappearance to manipulate you. Whatever he's told you is a lie designed to hurt me through you. And why would he want to hurt you? What did you do to his family? Nothing. Richard's voice rose for the first time. Alexander Blackwell was a business associate. Nothing more. His son has fabricated some conspiracy because he can't accept that his father was a flawed man who made questionable business decisions. The kettle's whistle cut through the tension. Neither of them moved to silence it. I want you to leave, Emma said quietly. I need time to think. Richard studied her for a long moment. Be careful, Emma. Blackwell is more dangerous than you realize. If you continue down this path, there may come a point where even I can't protect you. Is that a threat, Dad? It's a reality. He moved toward the door, then paused. I've only ever wanted what's best for you. Someday, when this is all over, I hope you'll understand that. After he left, Emma turned off the shrieking kettle with shaking hands. Her father's visit had confirmed what she already suspected. He was hiding something significant about her mother's fate. But was Nathan telling the whole truth either? Was he genuinely trying to help her uncover what happened, or using her in some complex game of revenge? Her phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. Check your email. Oh. In her inbox, Emma found a message from Olivia, martinezagmail.com, with a single attachment. It was a scanned document, a death certificate for Catherine Reed dated June 3, 1997, less than 3 months after the photograph at Wellspring was taken. Cause of death: suicide. Below the attachment was a single line of text. Ask him why he didn't show you this. Emma stared at the document, her vision blurring with tears. All these years, she had imagined her mother living a new life somewhere, perhaps with a new family, occasionally feeling guilty about the daughter she left behind. The reality that she had been dead for 16 years, that she had died alone in a psychiatric facility, was almost too much to bear. Before she could process this new revelation, her phone rang. Nathan's name flashed on the screen. Emma. His voice was urgent when she answered. Are you all right? Did your father come to see you? How did you know that? She asked, her voice hollow. I have people watching your apartment building, for your protection. My protection, she repeated numbly. Did you know my mother was dead, Nathan? A pause. Yes. Were you ever going to tell me? Yes, when the time was right, when I had all the facts. His voice softened. Emma, there are discrepancies in the official record. The death certificate says suicide, but the facility records indicate a transfer to another institution. Someone is covering up what really happened. Or someone is creating a conspiracy where there is none, she countered, her father's warning echoing in her mind. Emma, listen to me. Your father's visit tonight. Olivia sending you that death certificate. They're trying to drive a wedge between us because together we're getting too close to the truth. And what is the truth, Nathan? Because right now, everyone is telling me different versions of it, and I don't know who to believe. Believe the evidence, he said firmly, not what people tell you about it. Come to my office tomorrow. I'll show you everything I've uncovered, every document, every record. You can draw your own conclusions. Emma looked at the death certificate again, at the clinical finality of it. If my mother is really dead, then what's the point of all this? Why keep digging? Because she wasn't the only one, Emma. There were others who disappeared from Wellspring, Women whose families were told they had run away or committed suicide. Whatever happened there is part of something bigger, he paused. And because you deserve to know the truth about your mother, even if it's painful. After they hung up, Emma sat for a long time in her darkened apartment, the death certificate, and the photograph of her mother, side by side on the coffee table. Outside, the rain had intensified, lashing against her windows like angry fingers demanding entry. For the first time since she was a child, Emma wished she had someone to turn to, someone unconnected to this web of secrets and lies. But years of isolation had left her with colleagues rather than friends, acquaintances rather than confidants. In the end, she did what she had always done when the world became too overwhelming. She turned to books. From her shelves, she pulled down her mother's favorite novel, Jane Eyre. Catherine had read it to Emma countless times before she disappeared, her voice bringing the story of the orphaned girl who found strength within herself vividly to life. As she opened the worn volume, a folded piece of paper fell out, a bookmark she didn't remember placing there. It was a page torn from a small notebook, the handwriting unmistakably her mother's. "My dearest Emma," it read, "if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I've hidden this here because it's the one place I know you'll eventually. Look, the one place your father never would. There are things I've discovered, terrible things about Richard's business dealings with Alexander Blackwell. The Wellspring Institute isn't what it seems. If I don't come home, don't believe what they tell you about me. I would never leave you voluntarily. Find Dr. Sarah Jenkins at Columbia University. She has copies of everything. I love you always. Be brave, my little bookworm." "Mum." Emma stared at the note, her heart pounding. All these years, the truth had been sitting on her bookshelf, waiting for her to find it. Her mother had reached across time to give her the key, a name. Dr. Sarah Jenkins. With shaking fingers, Emma reached for her laptop. A quick search revealed that Dr. Sarah Jenkins was still at Columbia, a professor of psychiatry who specialized in trauma and memory. And according to her faculty page, she had office hours tomorrow morning. For the first time since this whirlwind began, Emma felt a sense of clarity. She would meet with Dr. Jenkins first, hear what her mother had entrusted to this woman 16 years ago. Then she would decide who to trust, Nathan, her father, or perhaps no one but herself. As she finally drifted off to sleep, the rain still beating against her windows, Emma clutched her mother's note like a talisman. Whatever truths tomorrow would bring, she would face them with the courage Catherine had asked of her. It was time to be brave. The Columbia University campus was bustling with students when Emma arrived the next morning. She had called in sick to the library, the first time she'd ever done so in 6 years. Victoria had sounded concerned but didn't press for details, which Emma appreciated. She needed clarity before she could face the familiar sanctuary of her books again. Dr. Sarah Jenkins' office was located in a historic building that housed the psychology department. The waiting area was empty when Emma arrived, and the secretary informed her that Dr. Jenkins was between appointments and could see her now. The psychiatrist was not what Emma had expected. Rather than the stern, academic type she had imagined, Sarah Jenkins was a warm woman in her 50s, with laugh lines around her eyes, and a casual manner that immediately put Emma at ease. "Emma Reed," Dr. Jenkins said, recognition dawning in her eyes as soon as Emma introduced herself. "Catherine's daughter. I've wondered if you'd ever find me." "You remember my mother?" Emma asked, taking a seat in the comfortable chair Dr. Jenkins indicated. "Of course I do. Catherine was not a person easily forgotten." Dr. Jenkins studied Emma's face. "You look very much like her." "Did you know she was dead?" Emma asked bluntly, watching the psychiatrist's reaction carefully. Dr. Jenkins's expression turned grave. "I suspected as much when she stopped contacting me, but I never saw a death certificate or any official confirmation. She left me a note saying you had copies of everything. What did she mean by that?" Dr. Jenkins rose and went to a filing cabinet in the corner of her office. Using a key from a chain around her neck, she unlocked the bottom drawer and removed a thick manila envelope. "Your mother came to me in early 1997, terrified for her life. We had been colleagues years before when I briefly worked as a consultant at Wellspring. She placed the envelope on the desk between them. Catherine had discovered that Wellspring wasn't just treating women with psychiatric issues. It was being used to silence women who posed a threat to powerful men, women who knew too much about illegal business dealings, political corruption, sexual misconduct. "Like my mother," Emma said softly. "Yes, Catherine had been working as an accountant for your father's firm. She stumbled across financial records indicating large sums of money being funneled from various corporations through Wellspring and into offshore accounts. When she dug deeper, she found that many of these corporations were linked to a single parent company. Blackwell Industries," Emma finished. Dr. Jenkins nodded. "Your mother gathered evidence for months before approaching me. She knew it was dangerous, but she couldn't stand by and do nothing. The women at Wellspring were being subjected to experimental treatments, drugs, therapies that weren't approved, procedures that often left them permanently altered. Some disappeared entirely. And that's what happened to my mother. She was committed there to silence her. She knew it was a possibility. That's why she created multiple copies of everything she'd found and distributed them to people she trusted." Dr. Jenkins tapped the envelope. "I was one of those people. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I would keep this safe until you were old enough to understand. Why didn't you come find me?" Emma couldn't keep the accusation from her voice. "I tried, Emma, but your father moved you both shortly after Catherine disappeared. He had legal custody, and there was nothing I could do without endangering you as well." Her eyes were filled with regret. "I hoped that someday you would find your way to me, and now you have." Emma opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of documents, financial records, patient logs from Wellspring, photographs and handwritten notes in her mother's familiar script. One photograph showed Alexander Blackwell shaking hands with her father at some sort of charity event, both men smiling for the camera, while their eyes remained cold and calculating. "My mother believed my father was involved in whatever was happening at Wellspring," Emma said, looking up from the documents. "Not just involved, she believed he was one of the architects of the entire operation," Dr. Jenkins confirmed. "Wellspring provided a perfect cover. Who would believe mentally unstable women making wild accusations against respected businessmen and politicians?" Emma thought of Nathan, of his quest to uncover the truth about his father's legacy. "Have you ever been approached by Nathan Blackwell about this?" Dr. Jenkins looked surprised. "Alexander's son? No, never. He's been investigating Wellspring too. He's the one who found evidence that my mother was a patient there. Be careful, Emma." Dr. Jenkins leaned forward, her expression serious. "The men who built Wellspring may be gone or aging, but the network they created, the people they paid off, the power structures they established, those remain. If Nathan Blackwell is genuinely trying to expose the truth, he's making powerful enemies. And if he's not—" She let the implication hang. "You think he might be involved too, continuing his father's work? I think the apple rarely falls far from the tree, and I think you need to be very careful about whom you trust." Emma gathered the documents, her mind reeling with the implications. "What should I do with all this?" "That's up to you." Dr. Jenkins's eyes were kind, but resolute. "Catherine believed that the truth was worth any price, but she never got to see you grow up, never got to live the life she deserved. Only you can decide if justice for your mother and the other women like her is worth the risk." As Emma left Columbia's campus, the world around her seemed sharper somehow, the colors more vivid, the sounds more distinct. The comfortable numbness that had been her constant companion for years had been replaced by a painful clarity. Her mother hadn't abandoned her. Catherine Reed had been a hero who died trying to expose a horrible injustice. And now Emma had to decide. Would she continue her mother's fight or retreat back into the safety of her books? Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Are you still coming to my office? I have more information to share." Emma stared at the message, Dr. Jenkins' warning echoing in her mind. Could she trust him? His father had been partners with hers in whatever horror show Wellspring really was. Yet Nathan had been the one to bring her mother's photograph to her attention, to start her on this path to the truth. She texted back, "Meeting you at 2. I have some information of my own to share. Nathan's response was immediate. I'll send a car. Emma clutched the envelope containing her mother's evidence. She would show Nathan some of what she had found, but not all of it. Not yet. She needed to see his reaction, to gauge whether he was truly her ally in this, or just another player in a game she was only beginning to understand. When she arrived at Blackwell Industries, Nathan was waiting for her in the lobby himself, rather than sending an assistant. His face lit up when he saw her, then quickly turned concerned as he took in her expression. "What's wrong?" he asked as they rode the elevator to his office. "Did something happen?" "I found something," Emma said, keeping her voice neutral. "Something my mother left for me." Nathan's eyes widened. What kind of something? Evidence about Wellspring, about what was really happening there. She studied his reaction carefully. "About our fathers." The elevator doors opened before he could respond, and they walked in silence to his office. Once inside, with the door firmly closed, Nathan turned to her. "Show me." Emma removed a few of the financial documents from the envelope, enough to give him a sense of what she had, but keeping the most damning evidence hidden for now. Nathan examined them with growing intensity, occasionally muttering under his breath or asking her to clarify something. "This is exactly what I've been looking for," he finally said, looking up at her with a mixture of triumph and sadness. "Proof that Wellspring wasn't just my father's project. It was a joint venture with multiple partners, including your father." "Why would they do this?" Emma asked, watching him closely. "What could be worth destroying so many lives? Money for some of them, power for others." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Emma now recognized as a sign of distress. "My father was obsessed with control, over his business, his family, the world around him. Wellspring gave him the ultimate form of control over women who threatened that world." "And my father?" Nathan hesitated. "From what I've been able to piece together, your father provided the financial framework, the means to launder money from Wellspring's various investors. When your mother discovered the discrepancies in the accounts, he had her committed," Emma finished, the full horror of it washing over her anew. "My own father." "I'm sorry, Emma." Nathan reached for her hand, his touch gentle. "I know how hard this must be to accept." She pulled away, not ready for comfort. "There's more," she said. "I spoke with Dr. Sarah Jenkins at Columbia this morning. She was a colleague of my mother's, someone my mum trusted with copies of her evidence." Nathan's expression flickered briefly. "Sarah Jenkins? The name sounds familiar." "She was a consultant at Wellspring for a time," Emma explained, watching him carefully. "She said she never met you." "I wouldn't have expected her to. I've been piecing this together from my father's records after his death." Nathan moved to his desk, unlocking a drawer and removing several files. "Here's what I've gathered so far. Patient records from Wellspring that match the financial transactions you've shown me. Women who were committed, their diagnoses, their treatments, and their outcomes." Emma took the files, her heart pounding as she opened the first one. Inside was a photograph of a woman in her 30s, along with pages of clinical notes. The final entry simply read, "Patient transferred to long-term care facility." The next file told a similar story, as did the next. They're all the same, Emma realized, looking up at Nathan. Women who discovered something, who threatened to expose someone powerful, who were committed and then transferred elsewhere. "Transferred is a euphemism," Nathan said grimly. "We haven't found any record of these women at other facilities. They simply vanished." "Like my mother," Emma whispered. "Yes." Nathan took a deep breath. "Emma, there's something else you need to see." He unlocked another drawer and removed a single file, thinner than the others. "I found this last night, after we spoke. It's your mother's patient record from Wellspring." Emma took the file with trembling hands. Unlike the others, this one contained very few clinical notes. The final entry, dated June 2nd, 1997, read simply, "Patient terminated." "Terminated," Emma repeated, the clinical coldness of the word making her stomach turn. "They killed her." "I believe so, yes." Nathan's voice was gentle but firm. "And I think I know why. The date, June 2nd, was the day before a scheduled meeting between federal investigators and a potential whistleblower about financial irregularities at several corporations linked to Blackwell Industries. My mother was the whistleblower, Emma realized. She never made it to that meeting. Nathan took the file from her hands, placing it carefully on his desk. Emma, I know this is overwhelming, but you need to understand the people we're dealing with. Your father, my father, they were part of something much bigger, a network of powerful men who protected each other at any cost. And now you're dismantling that network, Emma said, studying his face. Is that why Olivia is so determined to stop you? Was she part of it too? Olivia was my father's protégée before she was my fiancée, Nathan admitted. I didn't realize how deep her involvement went until after we were engaged. When I began investigating Wellspring in earnest, she tried everything to dissuade me. Seduction, emotional manipulation, threats. When none of that worked, she turned to more direct methods. Like warning me about you, Emma said, making me question your motives. Exactly. Nathan moved closer, his eyes intense. Emma, I need you to trust me. With what you've found and what I've uncovered, we might finally have enough to bring this whole thing down, to expose what happened at Wellspring, to get justice for your mother and all the other victims. Trust. Such a simple word for such a monumental leap of faith. Emma thought of her mother's note, "Be brave, my little bookworm," and of Dr. Jenkins' warning about the apple not falling far from the tree. I want to trust you, she said finally. But how do I know you're not just using me to get to my father? How do I know this isn't about revenge for you? Because revenge won't bring back the dead, Nathan said quietly, but the truth might prevent more deaths. He was standing very close to her now, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Despite everything, the danger, the lies, the swirling uncertainty, Emma felt herself drawn to him, to his strength, his determination, his apparent commitment to uncovering the truth, no matter the cost. The charity gala, she said suddenly. Is it still happening? Nathan looked surprised at the change of subject. Yes, tomorrow night. Why? Because my father will be there, Emma said, making up her mind. He's on the board of the museum. It's the perfect opportunity to see how he reacts when we appear together publicly. That's risky, Nathan warned. If he suspects we're working together to expose him. He already knows we're seeing each other, Emma pointed out. Olivia made sure of that, but he doesn't know what we know. Not all of it, anyway. Seeing us together might make him nervous enough to make a mistake. Nathan studied her for a long moment, then slowly smiled. You're more like your mother than you realize, he said. She was brave too. That night, as Emma prepared to leave Nathan's office, he insisted on having his driver take her home. It's not safe for you to be alone right now, he argued. Let me assign someone to watch your apartment, at least until after the gala. That seems excessive, Emma protested, though part of her was touched by his concern. These people killed your mother, Nathan reminded her. They won't hesitate to do the same to you if they think you're a threat. In the end, she acquiesced, allowing Nathan's security team to establish a discreet presence near her building. As the car pulled away from Blackwell Industries, Emma clutched her mother's evidence tightly. She had shown Nathan only a fraction of what she had, enough to convince him she was committed to their joint investigation, but holding back just enough to protect herself if her trust proved misplaced. The driver took an unexpected turn and Emma immediately tensed. Where are we going? This isn't the way to Brooklyn Heights. Mr. Blackwell suggested a more secure route, miss, the driver explained, given the circumstances. Emma peered out the window, trying to orient herself in the unfamiliar streets. They were heading deeper into Manhattan, not toward Brooklyn at all. Alarm bells rang in her mind. She reached for her phone to call Nathan, only to find the screen blank, dead battery. I need to use your phone, she told the driver. Mine's dead. Of course, miss. He reached into his jacket pocket and handed back a sleek black phone without taking his eyes off the road. Emma dialed Nathan's number from memory, her heart pounding. The call went straight to voicemail. She tried again with the same result. Is there a problem, miss? The driver asked, eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. Where exactly are we going? Emma demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "Somewhere safe," he replied enigmatically. "Mr. Blackwell's instructions." Emma weighed her options. She could try to open the door and jump out at the next red light, but at the speed they were traveling, she'd likely be seriously injured. She could scream for help, but the cars tinted. Windows would prevent anyone from seeing her distress. Or she could play along, try to determine where they were taking her, and look for an opportunity to escape once they arrived. The car turned onto a quiet residential street, lined with elegant townhouses. They pulled up in front of one near the end of the block, and the driver came around to open her door. "What is this place?" Emma asked, not moving from her seat. "Mr. Blackwell's private residence," the driver explained. "Not the penthouse you visited before, that's too well known. This is where he stays when he requires absolute privacy." Still wary, Emma allowed the driver to escort her to the front door, which opened before they reached it. To her immense relief, Nathan himself stood in the doorway. "Emma," he said, his face lined with concern. "I was worried when you didn't answer my calls. My phone died," she explained, stepping inside and feeling her tension ease slightly at the sight of him. "And your driver took an unexpected route. I'm sorry for the alarm. There was an incident after you left my office, a suspicious car, following my security team. I thought it best to bring you here rather than to your apartment." Nathan led her into a tastefully decorated living room. "This place isn't connected to me publicly. You'll be safe here." "An incident?" Emma asked, setting her bag down but keeping her mother's envelope close. "What kind of incident?" "The kind that confirms we're getting close to something they don't want us to find." Nathan poured her a glass of water from a carafe on the coffee table. "One of my security team recognized the driver of the suspicious vehicle as a former employee of Wellspring, someone with connections to your father." Emma accepted the water, studying Nathan's face for any sign of deception. "You think my father is having me followed?" "I think he's having us both followed," Nathan corrected, "which means we need to be extremely careful about our next moves." Emma took a sip of water, her mind racing. This was all happening so fast, too fast. 2 days ago, her biggest concern had been cataloging a new shipment of first editions. Now she was hiding in a secret residence, hunted by people who might want her dead for what she knew. "The gala," she said suddenly. "If they're watching us, won't it be dangerous to appear in public together?" "It's dangerous either way," Nathan admitted. "But at the gala, there will be hundreds of witnesses, security, press. They can't touch us there without creating a spectacle. And after," Nathan hesitated, "I've made arrangements. Once we confront your father at the gala, we'll have a security team ready to take us directly to a meeting I've set up with federal investigators. The evidence we've collected, combined with your mother's documents, should be enough to launch a full investigation." Emma nodded slowly, the reality of what they were planning finally sinking in. "My father will go to prison. If there's justice in this world, yes." Nathan sat beside her on the sofa, not touching her but close enough that she could feel his presence like a physical force. "Are you having second thoughts?" Was she? Emma searched her feelings. Richard Reed had been a controlling, often cold father, but he had been her only parent for most of her life. The idea of being responsible for sending him to prison was daunting. But then she thought of her mother, brave, principled Catherine, who had died trying to expose the truth. Of the other women who had disappeared from Wellspring, their families left without answers or closure. "No," she said firmly. "No second thoughts. My mother deserves justice. They all do." Nathan's relief was palpable. "Good. Because I've put everything on the line for this, Emma. My company, my reputation, my safety. I can't turn back now, and I need to know you're with me all the way." Emma met his intense gaze. "I'm with you," she promised. And in that moment she meant it completely. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of strategy and preparation. Nathan showed her the secure room where they would spend the night, separate, bedrooms connected by a shared sitting area, all with state-of-the-art security. He ordered dinner from a trusted restaurant, the food delivered by one of his security team, rather than a regular delivery person. As they ate, Emma found herself studying Nathan, trying to reconcile the different versions of him she had encountered. The charming, intellectual patron of the library, the driven businessman determined to expose his father's crimes, the protective, almost possessive man who had declared she was his during their first dinner together. Which was the real Nathan Blackwell? Or were they all facets of the same complex person? "You're staring," he observed with a hint of a smile. "I'm trying to figure you out," Emma admitted. "And now you're helping create a different kind of safety. Justice for the women of Wellspring. Exposure of the powerful men who thought they could play God with people's lives." His touch sent a current of warmth up Emma's arm. Despite all the danger and uncertainty surrounding them, she felt a connection to Nathan that was becoming harder to deny. Whether it was simply the intensity of their shared mission or something deeper, she couldn't say. But sitting there in the soft lamplight, his hand warm around hers, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in years, a sense of possibility. "We should get some rest," Nathan said, though he made no move to release her hand. "Tomorrow will be challenging." Emma nodded, reluctantly pulling her hand away. "Good night, Nathan." As she settled into the unfamiliar bed in Nathan's guest room, Emma found her thoughts drifting not to the danger they faced or the confrontation to come, but to Nathan himself. Was she falling for him, or simply being drawn into the intensity of their shared mission? And more importantly, could she trust these feelings, given how quickly they had developed? Sleep eluded her for hours as she turned these questions over in her mind. When she finally drifted off, her dreams were a jumble of images. Her mother's face in that old photograph, her father's cold eyes, Nathan's intense gaze, and through it all, the sterile corridors of Wellspring Institute, where secrets festered in the guise of treatment. The morning of the gala dawned clear and bright, a beautiful autumn day that belied the storm brewing in Emma's heart. She awoke to find a garment bag hanging on her door with a note from Nathan. "For tonight. If you don't like it, we can find something else." Inside was a stunning emerald green gown that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. It was elegant without being flashy, sophisticated without being severe, exactly what Emma would have chosen for herself. After a quiet breakfast with Nathan, during which they reviewed their plan for the evening one more time, Emma spent the day alternating between nervous pacing and reviewing her mother's documents. The more she read, the more certain she became that they were doing the right thing. Catherine Reed had died, trying to expose the truth about Wellspring. Emma would finish what her mother had started, no matter the cost. As evening approached, Emma prepared for the gala with a sense of surreal detachment, as if she were getting ready for a role in a play rather than a confrontation that could change her life forever. The dress fit perfectly, complementing her coloring and figure in a way that made her almost unrecognizable to herself in the mirror. When she emerged from her room, Nathan was waiting in the sitting area, resplendent in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His eyes widened appreciatively when he saw her. "You look incredible," he said, his voice warm with admiration. "So do you," Emma replied, suddenly shy under his intense gaze. "There's one more thing." Nathan removed a small velvet box from his pocket. "This was my mother's. I thought you might wear it tonight." Inside the box was an elegant emerald pendant on a delicate platinum chain, simple yet stunning, and a perfect match for her dress. "Nathan, I couldn't possibly—" "Please," he interrupted, "for luck." Emma allowed him to fasten the necklace around her throat, his fingers warm against her skin. The pendant nestled in the hollow of her collarbone as if it had been made for her. "Perfect," Nathan murmured, his hands lingering on her shoulders. The moment was interrupted by a discreet knock at the door. One of Nathan's security team had arrived to escort them to the waiting car. The gala awaited, and with it, the confrontation they had been preparing for. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed for the annual charity gala, its grand entrance hall aglow with thousands of lights. As Nathan helped Emma from the car, flashbulbs popped. Apparently, Nathan Blackwell arriving with an unknown woman was newsworthy enough to attract the attention of society photographers. "Ready?" Nathan asked quietly, offering his arm. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her mother's courage like a mantle on her shoulders. "Ready." They ascended the steps together, Emma acutely aware of the curious glances and whispered comments that followed them. 2 days ago you were just a wealthy library patron with an interest in first editions. Now you're the center of my life. Is that a bad thing? Emma considered the question. I'm not sure yet, but it's definitely not what I expected when I helped you find that copy of The Great Gatsby. Nathan's smile faded. I never meant to drag you into danger, Emma. When I first came to the library, I was simply looking for a connection to your mother, trying to piece together what happened at Wellspring. I didn't expect to find... He trailed off. Find what? You, he said simply. Someone who understands what it's like to live in the shadow of secrets. Someone who values truth as much as I do. There was such sincerity in his voice that Emma felt her remaining doubts begin to waver. If this was an act, it was a masterful one. Tell me something real, she said suddenly. Something that isn't about Wellspring or our parents or this investigation. Something just about you. Nathan looked surprised, then thoughtful. Something real, he repeated. All right. When I was 12, my father took me to his office for the first time. He wanted to show me the empire I would someday inherit. But while he was meeting with some associates, I wandered off and found myself in the company archives, rows and rows of financial records, corporate histories, personnel, files. He smiled at the memory. I was fascinated, not by the business details, but by the stories those files told, the people who had built Blackwell Industries, their triumphs and failures, their lives outside the office. I spent hours there, reading, file after file, until my father finally found me. Was he angry? Emma asked, drawn into the story. Furious. He said I was wasting time on irrelevant sentimentality when I should have been learning about profit margins and market strategies. Nathan's expression darkened. That was the day I realized I would never be the son he wanted. The ruthless businessman who saw people as assets or liabilities, nothing more. Is that why you became so interested in the human cost of his business dealings? Why you started investigating Wellspring? Partly, Nathan acknowledged, but it was also because of my mother. She died when I was 15, officially of heart failure, but I always suspected it was the strain of living with my father that really killed her. He wasn't physically abusive, but he was corrosive. He destroyed people from the inside out. Emma thought of her own father, cold, controlling, but never overtly cruel. At least that's what she had always believed. Now she wondered if there had been a monster hiding behind that polished facade all along. Your turn, Nathan said, interrupting. Her thoughts. Tell me something real about Emma Reed. She considered what to share, something meaningful but not too revealing. When I was 14, I ran away, she finally said. Not far, just to the public library in our neighborhood. I packed a backpack with some clothes, my favorite books, and all the money I had saved from my allowance. I was planning to live there somehow, sleeping in the stacks at night, using the public bathrooms to wash up. Nathan was watching her intently. What happened? The security guard found me hiding in the reference section after closing. He could have called the police, had me sent home. Instead, he let me stay in the staff break room overnight, gave me a sandwich from his own lunch. In the morning, he talked to me, really talked to me like an adult, asked me why I was running away, what I hoped to find. Emma smiled at the memory. I told him I was looking for my mother, that I thought if I read every book in the library I might find some clue about where she went, why she left us. It was childish, magical thinking, but he didn't laugh. He just said, books have a way of finding us when we need them most, but sometimes the answers we need aren't in books at all. Wise man, Nathan commented. He was, Emma agreed. He convinced me to go home, but he also gave me a library card of my own, something my father had always controlled before. That card became my passport to freedom. Whenever things got too oppressive at home, I could escape to the library. It's why I became a librarian, I think, to create that same safe space for others. Nathan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. Nathan Blackwell was apparently not known for bringing dates to such events, and certainly not unknown librarians from Brooklyn Heights. Inside, the gala was in full swing, New York's elite mingling among priceless artifacts, champagne flowing freely as the wealthy and powerful played at philanthropy. Emma scanned the crowd, looking for her father's familiar silver head. There, Nathan murmured, subtly indicating a group near one of the main exhibits. With the senator. Emma followed his gaze and saw her father deep in conversation with Senator James Wilson, one of the most powerful men in New York politics. Richard Reed looked exactly as she remembered him, impeccably dressed, commanding, his silver hair gleaming under the museum lights. "Let's make our entrance," Nathan said, guiding her toward the center of the room where they would be most visible. As they moved through the crowd, Emma felt a familiar prickle of awareness, the sensation of being watched. She turned slightly to find Olivia Martinez observing them from across the room, her expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been fear. "Olivia's here," Emma whispered to Nathan. "I expected as much," he replied calmly. She wouldn't miss the opportunity to see this play out. Before Emma could respond, they were approached by an elderly couple, friends of Nathan's family, judging by their familiar greeting. He introduced Emma smoothly, and she found herself drawn into the kind of polite small talk that characterized these events. But all the while, she was aware of her father's presence across the room, and of the moment of confrontation drawing ever closer. They were midway through their second circuit of the room, when Emma felt a hand on her arm. She turned to find her father standing there, his smile as cold and practiced as ever. "Emma," he said, his voice carrying just the right note of paternal affection for their public setting. "What a lovely surprise. I had no idea you were attending tonight." "Dad," she replied, careful to keep her own expression neutral. "I'm here with Nathan Blackwell. You remember him, I'm sure." Richard's eyes flicked to Nathan, a brief flash of something, anger, fear, crossing his face before his social mask slipped back into place. "Of course, Alexander's son. It's been some time." "Not since your joint venture at Wellspring Institute, I believe," Nathan said smoothly, his voice pitched low enough that only the three of them could hear. Richard's smile didn't waver, but his eyes turned to ice. "I'm not sure what you're referring to, Mr. Blackwell. My dealings with your father were strictly in the financial sector." "Is that what you told the federal investigators after Catherine disappeared?" Nathan asked, still in that same pleasant tone. "Or did you save that particular fiction for your daughter?" Emma felt a chill run down her spine at the naked hatred that flashed across her father's face before he composed himself. "Emma," Richard said, turning to her with a concerned expression, "I don't know what stories this man has been telling you, but I urge you to be careful. The Blackwells have never been known for their honesty or stability." "That's rich, coming from you," Emma said quietly. "The man who had his own wife committed to silence her, who told his daughter her mother had abandoned them both." Richard glanced around, clearly concerned about being overheard. "This is hardly the place for such a discussion." "No," Nathan agreed. "The place for this discussion is in a federal prosecutor's office, with all the evidence we've gathered laid out for examination." For the first time, Emma saw genuine fear in her father's eyes. "Evidence? What evidence?" "Mom's financial records," Emma said. "Her notes about the real purpose of Wellspring, the patient logs showing what happened to the women who were treated there. Dr. Sarah Jenkins has had copies of everything for 16 years, Dad. And now so do we." Richard's face had gone pale. "Emma, you don't understand what you're getting involved in. This is bigger than you realize." "I understand perfectly," she countered, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "You and Alexander Blackwell, and who knows how many other powerful men used Wellspring to silence women who threatened your positions. Women like my mother, who discovered your money laundering operation and was planning to go to the authorities. Is everything all right here?" Senator Wilson had approached their tense circle, his politician's instinct for trouble, apparently, triggered by their body language. "Everything's fine, James," Richard said, attempting a smile that looked more like a grimace. "Just a family disagreement." The senator looked unconvinced, his eyes moving from Richard to Emma to Nathan with shrewd assessment. "Perhaps this isn't the best venue for family matters," he suggested smoothly. "You're right," Nathan agreed. "Emma and I were just leaving. We have an appointment with some people who are very interested in the history of the Wellspring Institute." People from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, in fact. The senator's expression didn't change, but Emma noticed his hand tighten on his champagne flute. Wellspring. That old place has been closed for years, hasn't it? The facility is closed, Nathan confirmed. But its legacy lives on. In missing women, in destroyed families, in offshore accounts that continue to quietly accumulate interest. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about, Wilson said stiffly. No? Perhaps these will refresh your memory. Nathan extracted a small envelope from his inner pocket and handed it to the senator. Copies only, of course. The originals are quite safe. Wilson opened the envelope, his face draining of color as he examined the contents. Emma couldn't see what Nathan had given him, but the effect was dramatic. The senator looked as if he might be ill. "Where did you get these?" he demanded in a harsh whisper. "That's not important," Nathan replied. "What matters is what we intend to do with them, and with all the other evidence we've collected." Richard placed a restraining hand on Wilson's arm. "This isn't the place, James. Mr. Blackwell is clearly attempting to create a scene." "On the contrary," Nathan said, "I'm trying to prevent one. A public scandal would be messy for everyone involved. But a quiet deal with federal prosecutors, that might be more manageable." Wilson and Richard exchanged a loaded glance, some unspoken communication passing between them. "What do you want?" Wilson finally asked. "Justice," Emma said before Nathan could answer. "For my mother and all the other women who disappeared from Wellspring. No deals, no quiet arrangements, full disclosure, full prosecution." "That's not possible," Richard said, his voice hard. "You have no idea what you're asking, the lives you'd destroy." "Lives like yours?" Emma challenged. "You destroyed my mother's life, Dad. You destroyed my childhood with your lies. Why should I care about protecting you now?" "Because I'm your father," Richard said, as if that answered everything. "And she was my mother," Emma replied. "The mother you took from me." Her tense silence fell over their small group, broken only when Olivia Martinez approached, her smile brittle as she inserted herself into their circle. "Nathan, darling," she said, ignoring the palpable tension. "You've been avoiding me all evening." "Not now, Olivia," Nathan said dismissively. But Olivia wasn't deterred. She turned to Emma with a pitying smile. "Has he told you about his plans for Wellspring yet? About how he intends to rebuild it, to continue his father's work?" Emma felt as if she'd been doused with ice water. "What? Oh, didn't he mention it?" Olivia's eyes gleamed with malicious triumph. "Phase 2, he calls it, same concept updated for the digital age. Instead of locking away inconvenient women, they'll just be discredited online. Character assassination is so much cleaner than actual elimination, don't you think?" Emma looked at Nathan, searching his face for any sign that Olivia's words were true. "Is that what this is about? You're not trying to expose Wellspring, you're trying to perfect it." "She's lying," Nathan said, his voice tight with anger. "This is exactly the kind of manipulation I warned you about." "Am I lying?" Olivia extracted her phone from her clutch, tapping the screen a few times before holding it up. "Perhaps Emma would like to hear the recording of our conversation from last month, the one where you outlined your vision for the new and improved Wellspring initiative." Before Nathan could respond, there was a commotion near the entrance to the gallery. Emma turned to see several men in suits entering the room, their purposeful stride and alert expressions marking them as law enforcement even before they reached for their badges. "Federal agents," one of them called out. "Nobody move!" The gala erupted into confused murmurs and exclamations as the agents moved through the crowd with clear purpose. To Emma's shock, they headed straight for their small group. "Senator Wilson, Mr. Reed," the lead agent said, "we need you both to come with us for questioning in connection with an ongoing investigation into financial crimes and conspiracy." "This is outrageous," Wilson blustered. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "Yes, sir, we do," the agent replied calmly. "That's precisely why we're here." As the agents began to escort her father and the senator away, Richard turned back to Emma, his eyes pleading. "Emma, please, don't let them do this. I'm your father." Emma felt tears welling in her eyes. "You stopped being my father the day you put Mom in that place," she said quietly. "The day you chose your secrets over your family." The agents led Richard and Wilson away, the gala now in complete disarray, as guests whispered and speculated about what was happening. Emma turned to Nathan, her mind reeling. "Did you know they were coming tonight?" she asked. "No," he said, looking as shocked as she felt. "This wasn't part of our plan. Someone else must have—" "It was me," Olivia interrupted, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. "Did you really think I was just going to stand by and watch you use this poor girl to further your own agenda, Nathan?" "My agenda is justice," Nathan snapped. "Something you wouldn't understand." "Your agenda is control," Olivia countered. "Just like your father. You've convinced yourself you're different, that your motives are pure, but you're just as obsessed with power as he was." She turned to Emma. "He's been playing you from the beginning, you know, using your mother's tragedy to manipulate you into helping him take control of everything your father and his built." Emma felt as if the floor were tilting beneath her feet. "Is that true?" she asked Nathan, searching his face for the truth. "Of course it's not true," he insisted, reaching for her hand. "Emma, don't listen to her. Everything I've told you, everything we've discovered together, it's all real. Your mother, Wellspring, the conspiracy, all of it. Parts of it are real," Olivia acknowledged. "The women who disappeared, the cover-ups, that all happened. But Nathan's role in this isn't what you think. He didn't discover the truth about Wellspring after his father died. He's known about it for years. He was being groomed to take over the operation before Alexander died unexpectedly." "That's a lie," Nathan said. But Emma noticed he wouldn't meet her eyes. "Is it?" Olivia pulled another envelope from her clutch. "These are photographs of Nathan at Wellspring during his college years. He was an intern there, working directly with the doctors who treated those women, including your mother, Emma." Emma took the envelope with trembling hands, dreading what she might find inside. The photographs showed a younger Nathan in a white lab coat, observing procedures, reviewing patient files. And in one, the one that made her heart stop, he was standing in the background while a doctor administered some kind of injection to a sedated woman who looked horribly like Catherine Reed. "No," Emma whispered, the photograph slipping from her numb fingers. "No, it can't be true." "Emma," Nathan reached for her, his face anguished. "It's not what it looks like. I was young. I didn't understand what was really happening there." "You were there when they killed her," Emma said, the full horror of it washing over her. "You were there when they killed my mother." "I didn't know," Nathan's voice broke. "I swear to you, I didn't know what they were doing. When I realized the truth, I devoted my life to exposing it all, to making it right." Emma backed away from him, her mind reeling. "Was any of it real?" she asked. "Any of it? Or was I just a means to an end, a way to get to my father's evidence, to complete your takeover?" "Everything I feel for you is real," Nathan insisted, reaching for her again. "Emma, please, you have to believe me." But Emma couldn't bear his touch, couldn't reconcile the man she'd begun to trust, perhaps even to love, with the young doctor in that photograph, standing by while a woman was murdered. She turned and fled, pushing through the confused crowd toward the exit. Outside, the cool night air hit her like a physical blow. Emma stood on the museum steps, gasping for breath, her mind a chaos of conflicting emotions and revelations. Behind her, she heard Nathan calling her name, but she couldn't face him. Not now, not after what she'd seen. A car pulled up to the curb and the back door opened. To Emma's shock, Dr. Sarah Jenkins was inside. "Get in, Emma," she said urgently. "Quickly. It's not safe for you here." Without thinking, Emma obeyed, sliding into the car just as Nathan emerged from the museum entrance. The last thing she saw as the car pulled away was his face, anguished, desperate, calling her name as she disappeared into the night. As the car sped through the night-darkened streets of Manhattan, Emma struggled to process the cascade of revelations. Dr. Jenkins sat beside her, calm and composed despite the chaos they'd left behind. "How did you know where to find me?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "After you visited my office, I started keeping tabs on Nathan Blackwell," Dr. Jenkins explained. "I've had contacts watching him, and you, since I realized how deeply you were getting involved. When I learned about the gala tonight, I knew it was likely to be a flashpoint." Emma stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. Was it all a lie? Everything Nathan told me about wanting to expose Wellspring, about seeking justice for my mother. Dr. Jenkins sighed. The truth is rarely that simple, Emma. Nathan Blackwell is a complicated man with complicated motivations. Did he want to expose Wellspring? Yes, I believe he did, but his reasons and his method, she shook her head. Let's just say that revenge and justice often wear similar masks. So those photographs, Emma said, the image of Nathan standing in the background while her mother was drugged, still burning in her mind. He was there when they killed her. He was an intern at Wellspring that summer, Dr. Jenkins confirmed. Just 20 years old, following his father's footsteps as expected. Whether he fully understood what was happening there is another question. How can you defend him? Emma demanded, anger finally breaking through her shock. He lied to me, used me. I'm not defending him, Dr. Jenkins replied calmly. I'm simply suggesting that the full truth might be more nuanced than either Olivia Martinez or Nathan himself has presented to you. The car turned onto a quiet residential street in the Upper West Side, stopping in front of a modest brownstone. Dr. Jenkins led Emma inside, through a cozy living room filled with books, and into a small study at the back of the house. You'll be safe here tonight, she said, gesturing for Emma to sit. Tomorrow we can decide on next steps. Next steps, Emma repeated numbly. My father's been arrested. Nathan's... I don't even know what Nathan is. What next steps could possibly make sense of any of this? The next steps toward the truth, Dr. Jenkins said simply. She moved to a painting on the wall, swinging it aside to reveal a safe. After entering a combination, she removed a thick folder and placed it on the desk between them. What's this? Emma asked. The complete record of your mother's investigation into Wellspring, including information she discovered about Nathan that she never had a chance to share with anyone. Dr. Jenkins opened the folder. Information that might help you understand what's really been happening these past few days. Inside were photographs, financial records, and several handwritten journals that Emma instantly recognized as her mother's. But what drew her attention was a series of photographs showing a teenage Nathan with his father at what appeared to be some sort of medical facility. These were taken when Nathan was 16, Dr. Jenkins explained. 2 years before his mother died. Alexander Blackwell was bringing his son to Wellspring, grooming him to eventually take over. But something happened that Alexander didn't anticipate. She pointed to a particular photograph. It showed young Nathan sitting with a patient, an older woman with kind eyes who was reading to him from a book. Her name was Eleanor Wright, Dr. Jenkins continued. She was a journalist who had uncovered evidence of corruption involving Alexander Blackwell and several high-ranking politicians. She was committed to Wellspring with a diagnosis of paranoid delusions when she tried to publish her findings. Emma studied the photograph. The woman didn't look delusional. She looked lucid and engaged as she read to the teenage boy beside her. Eleanor recognized something in Nathan, a sensitivity that his father lacked, a conscience that hadn't yet been completely smothered by his upbringing. She befriended him during his visits, subtly planting seeds of doubt about what Wellspring really was. Dr. Jenkins turned to another photograph, this one showing Nathan in his white lab coat during his internship years later. He was standing in a hallway, looking troubled as he examined a patient file. By the time Nathan began his internship, Eleanor was gone, transferred like so many others. But the seeds she had planted had taken root. Nathan began to question what was happening at Wellspring, began to look more closely at the treatments, the diagnoses, the disappearances. If he knew something was wrong, why didn't he do something? Emma demanded. Why didn't he try to stop it? He did, in his own way, Dr. Jenkins said. He began documenting everything he saw, keeping his own set of records separate from the official ones. When your mother was brought to Wellspring, Nathan was already building a case against his father and the others involved. She handed Emma a journal from the folder, not her mother's this time, but one written in a different hand. This is Nathan's journal from that period. Your mother found it, copied parts of it, then put it back before anyone noticed it was missing. Emma opened the journal with trembling hands, finding an entry dated just days before her mother's termination. Patient KR continues to deteriorate under Protocol 17. She's fighting the treatments, maintaining lucidity despite... Increased dosages. Father insists she's too dangerous to release, knows too much about the financial operations. Senator W. visited today, seemed nervous about KR's continued resistance. I overheard discussion of permanent solution if she doesn't respond to next round of treatment. Must find a way to intervene without exposing my investigation. Running out of time. Emma looked up, her heart pounding. He was trying to help her. I believe so, yes, Dr. Jenkins replied. But he was young, inexperienced, caught in a system, much larger and more powerful than he understood. By the time he realized what they were planning for Catherine, it was too late. She turned to another page in Nathan's journal, dated the day after Catherine's death. They killed her. While I was distracting the night nurse as planned, they administered a lethal dose, made it look like suicide. I was too late. By the time I got back to her room, she was already gone. This is my fault, my cowardice, my hesitation. I should have done more, should have gotten her out sooner. I'll never forgive myself. And I'll never stop until I bring down everyone responsible, starting with my father. Emma stared at the words until they blurred through her tears. This didn't sound like the calculated manipulator Olivia had described. This sounded like a young man drowning in guilt and grief. Why didn't he tell me this, she whispered. Why all the secrecy, the half-truths? Shame, perhaps, Dr. Jenkins suggested. Or fear that you would blame him for not saving your mother. Or maybe he thought the truth would put you in even more danger. What do you mean? Nathan wasn't the only one keeping records at Wellspring, Dr. Jenkins explained. Your mother was gathering evidence too. Evidence that implicated not just Alexander Blackwell and your father, but dozens of powerful men across business and politics. Men like Senator Wilson, who's now being questioned by the FBI. She leaned forward, her expression grave. The network that created and protected Wellspring still exists, Emma. Even with Alexander Blackwell dead and your father arrested, there are others involved who would do anything to keep their secrets buried. And Nathan, where does he fit in all this now?